All right, I figured I'd show you a little bit of my messy shop. There's my X block sitting on the stand that I just found out that I lost a couple cam lobes on it Wednesday night. Here's the 340 that came off my run-in stand. Needs to go in that 73 Duster out there that I'm waiting on a carburetor for. There's a Fabo Members 340 sitting on my run-in stand. We're waiting on an intake manifold for that because I don't have a mill big enough here to do it myself. Here's part of my workbench where the lathe pretty much threw up on itself. Okay, and here's my BX4 carb, B4X. See if I can do this and not shake all over the place. If you can see, I loaned out my carburetor plate and I haven't got it back yet. Let me see if I can do it some other way so you can see what's going on here. Wow, that's terrible. I'm gonna get seasick. So those levers have a 0 on them. That actually means something. I don't remember both mine have. Yeah, both of my levers have a 0 on them. You can't even see that one. Yeah. There's the 0 on that one. And I don't know if you can see it or not. I suck at videoing. I actually, once I got, there we go. So once I got the cam side bent to where it was flat laying on the cam, then I bent this back up so it's perpendicular and where it should be. And you can't hardly see it in the video, but let me see if I can get in here a little closer and show it to you. I actually got a little jiggy with it. Yeah, you can't see it in the video. But what I did was, in order to get that pump arm underneath that where it should go, I actually bent this arm a little bit. So I made this get back to perpendicular and vertical and all that. And then I bent this so that it's right underneath the center of it. And that's the way they should look when you're done. If I had my carb stand, this would certainly be a lot easier. And so, damn. You can see the pump arms moving really, I mean, there's no messing around. And at the very bottom, there's maybe 5 thousandths there. And like I said, even if they bottom out just a little bit, it doesn't really matter because the spring takes up where they bottom out. So that's not such a big deal. That's what a BOP B4X looks like. So that's what I have for my junk. But hopefully you can see that. And sometimes you just got to bend it around till you get it where you want it. Because the geometry, like I said, on all these arms are different. And I think when I bought the carburetor, I ordered it without this linkage because I had a bunch of it left over. This linkage right here. I had a whole bunch of it left over. This is probably off of a 19... well, actually, part of that carburetor is still here. It's off of this junker that's under the bench right here. This one here. That carburetor started out as a 830 annular discharge carburetor. My brother bought it in about 1987, 86. And it's been on a bunch of different cars. And you couldn't tune it. And then I found out later that there was multiple reasons why you couldn't tune the thing, even though it's got my really nice boosters in there. There's a bunch of issues with these carburetors. If you look at the booster in this one, that's one of the last things I did to it before I scrapped it and went to the B4X. If you see the boosters right there, you see that little machine spot that stops. Man, stupid phones ringing. This helps shear the fuel. So if you can look right there, you can see that's a machined lip. I don't think we can see it on mine because the butterflies are in there, but that machined lip actually makes them shear fuel. And I was doing everything I could to try and get the fuel curve in shape on that thing, and it just never worked. And this is the base plate off of it. If you notice, I actually, this was so long ago, they didn't have really good one-to-one linkage. Wow, there we go. They didn't have really good one-to-one linkage. So I took this was like 660 center square linkage, and I made it one-to-one. So this is from way back when. I did this in the mid 80s. And still, you know, you never could sort this other carburetor out. And so that's where those pump arms that I'm using came from. They came off that old 830 annular booster. And so that's, once you get everything all bent up and get the geometry right, you get it back over center, you'll also find out that these springs are going to be collapsed a lot more because you're lifting with you got so much more lift on the blue cams. And I'll see if I can find the link and send you the link that shows the actual right link that takes you to where there's a, somebody made up a nice little graph. They made up a graph, and it shows all the various cams, you know, the color of different cams, the browns and the blues and the pinks and the whatever. And this is the one with the most lift, and it's the quickest off the bottom. And that's where you really want it. You really want it right off the bottom. That's because that's where you're going to need the pump shot. And of course, I didn't realize there was that much fuel in that thing. But that's where you want it. You want it, as soon as you touch it, you're going to want it pushing fuel. Now I'm running out, but that's what you want. Because what happens when you hit the throttle, most people think that the booster, that's going to fall off. They think that what happens when you hit the throttle is you're not on the booster hard enough to make it pull fuel out the booster. That's part of it, but the other thing that happens is all the fuel that's in the intake manifold, when you flip the throttle open and drop the manifold vacuum to 0, anything that's a vapor in the manifold becomes a liquid, and it falls out of suspension and it runs in as wet flow. So that's mostly what the accelerator pump is covering up for. That what becomes wet flow after you drop the manifold vacuum down to 0, and you're covering up a little bit waiting to get on the booster. So probably just trivial junk, but interesting nonetheless. So I hope that helps, but I hope you can see that well enough that if you just bend it around till you get everything back in line, then you'll be golden. And that should be what it looks like.